Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here. We're going to start in one moment. As soon as everybody is in the right place and people are in the room, we're going to get going. So thanks for your patience. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder and managing director here at Cultivated. And today we're talking about one of the most critical problems in cannabis edibles and the technology that is fixing it. For years, and you know this as well as I do, the edibles market had a credibility problem. Consumers ate a gummy or chocolate expecting effects in 30 minutes, and nothing happens for an hour or more, or vice versa. That unpredictability cost brands trust with limited use cases, and frankly, I believe held back the category. But then something shifted. As producers scaled operation to multiple markets and consumers demanded repeatable experience, there was a standard emerging that was fast acting and predictable. Today, we're diving into how that actually happened. We're joined by Ron Silver, a renowned chef at Bubby's and founder of Bubby's in New York, and founder of Azuca, and Kim Rael, Azuca's CEO. Together, they built Time Infusion, a proprietary technology that's solving the onset problem at scale and over 700 million servings sold, which is a lot. We're going to talk about Ron's culinary roots in cannabis infusion, the founding story behind Azuca, the science about what makes edibles predictable and unpredictable, and how they fixed it. We're exploring their model and allowing regional brands and big brands and small brands to compete with each other. And we'll dig into what consumers actually want from their edibles experiences in 2026, and hopefully take a look at beyond that as well. So with that, it's certainly enough for me. I'm going to welcome up Ron Silver and Kim Rael. Thanks for being here, everybody. Ron and Kim, thanks for being here.
Good to be here, Jay.
I'm glad we have the chance to do this and have you both today because first and foremost, I'm interested in the origin story of Azuca. We've covered a bit about sort of the what you do in the industry now, and we'll get to that. But I am interested in sort of the startup story between you, Ron, and you, Kim. Give us a little bit of the background, and maybe Ron, we'll start with you.
Well, so I have always been a cannabis person all my life, really, and I would say that I had to fight hard for that, and that it was not the most encouraged thing when I was a child. I don't understand why, but it wasn't. And then, as as this cannabis industry started to show that it was going to be a thing, it turned out that I had a friend who started something that he was calling a cannabis hedge fund, and so in Las Vegas. And so I went and I was hanging out in his office one day, just because I was in Las Vegas and just seeing what he was up to, and I could really see the beginnings of all the things that were going to be the cannabis industry, from real estate, lighting, vape pen technology, a million things. And at the end of the day, I went to each of the people. There were like 8 or 9 people working in there. I was like, to all of them, I was like, what is the biggest problem facing the cannabis industry, and how do you see that? And everybody said predictable edible. And so I was like, damn, that's right up my alley. I'm picking that. And so I really, for the sake of it, I have no education. I've been a chef all my life. And so I really started studying hard for that. I bought my first textbook, which was $250, if you can imagine, and started reading theses that were written in the 70s by people who loved weed, but they just knew that it was kind of, I don't know, you could see that they could tell in writing it that they were just doing it for their own edification. So I really started learning about it, and as things got going, I really started understanding that my culinary background and my love for cannabis, they sort of formed a way that I could sort of make progress, even though I was working in a vacuum. And so then, you know, I am a hustler from the get go, and I really tried to work with different people and could see that the industry was being populated by sort of business people and people who are sort of into like a quarterly march and, you know, what's the exit scenario. And I am not that person really. And so after a couple of years of this, I really understood that I could not do this on my own. And then through what I would say some guidance from Shiva, somehow Kim and I ended up meeting, and it was the most unlikely meeting. And that, you know, Kim had a little tag on that said "Just say no," and I always have a tag on that says "Just say why not." And so we really we I would say that we had a really nice connection from the beginning, but you know, with all due respect and regard, Kim had many a doubt that we could work together, and I had no idea because I do not work well with others all the time.
Well, that's a good place to hand it off to Kim, but also so now Kim, you've entered the conversation. What was that sort of first meeting like, and sort of how did you? I don't you didn't take the ball and run, but talk a little bit about sort of that first meeting and where you saw the world going.
Well, Ron is right. I was, born and raised in the Nancy Reagan "just say no" era, and I was pretty much still a card-carrying member of that group. So I was just very ignorant. I hadn't studied the plant. I hadn't really was misinformed on the history of criminalization, the whole thing. So I met Ron, and I thought he was nuts, pretty much. And he's like, I invented this thing, and I want to start a company, and I need a CEO. And I said no for about 6 months. And I remember, like, Ron, you're in New York, I'm in New Mexico. There's 13 million people in New York. Like, find a CEO in New York. But I was, my background is in tech and finance, and was interested in staying in the startup world in something in the wellness category. But cannabis had not, prior to that, sort of crossed into my frame of reference as a wellness product and industry. Obviously, my thinking has changed since then a lot. But I think Ron's right. Shiva was involved. The good Lord said, "Thou shalt go be a cannabis CEO." My children, my teenagers who had been punished for getting caught with cannabis, on a school trip, and had to write mommy an essay on the evils of marijuana like 2 years before, were very surprised, and were like, "Who are you, and what have you done with our mother?" And it really was a journey. And I think I'm a case study for kind of the old stigma, the ignorance that still a lot of our population still carries. And I think I am also a case study for, like, our best customer, right? People who may not have a history in cannabis like Ron does, but now can discover the plant in a very approachable, friendly, easy to understand, easy to consume, predictable format. And that's where Azuca ended up. So we started out originally with these, creative formulations that Ron invented. And then over the years, that has evolved from the art that Ron created around the molecules to, an advanced bioscience platform that we now have infused over 800 million servings in this industry. We have a licensing business model, so we create intellectual property around these formulations to make cannabinoids fast onset, predictable, great tasting, very easy to dose predictably. And we license those formulations, we license the intellectual property, and sell a non-infused precursor ingredient to our brand customers. So in 8 years, we've kind of gone from the artist bench, which is where the magic happens, to full-blown scale biotech platform for cannabinoid, and now expanding into terpenes and non-cannabinoid active molecules.
And I want to talk about that in a second, but it does seem to me, I'm not trying to write sort of a historical view of Azuca today, but it does seem like the seeds of the idea, sorry, there's going to be metaphors in here, but the seeds of the idea, which happened when Ron went to Nevada to look what was happening in the cannabis industry, to the sort of the right brain, left brain getting together to say, okay, this is how we take this insight about onset and offset and replicability and bring it to a model that is not only a viable business, but also a scaled business. Like, that is a lot to happen in a relatively short time frame in any business. In cannabis, that's sort of the normal time frame because this is what's happened. But like, to solve that insight problem, like the problem hasn't gone away, but you provide a solution and a market fit, which whoever Ron was talking to back the day in Nevada, like it actually worked, and we're getting there. And it doesn't always happen that the market fit matches the timing, matches the regulatory environment. Like it does seem like some of it is magic, right? Sort of as you guys described, but some of it is also like turning Ron's ideas into something that's scalable and possible. And that only works, not just the two of you, but it only works when people get together just like this. And I wonder, now that you've been in the industry for some time, how it hasn't happened more, because I don't think it's happened a great deal. We have unbelievable growers. They rarely match up with unbelievable business people to help them scale in a state or nationally or replicably or over a course of time. But like, is it about the product that is sort of science-based, or is it about sort of the skill and talent to make it happen? I wonder if you guys have any thoughts on that.
I'll jump in. I think a lot of it is Ron and I sometimes, we call ourselves the odd couple of cannabis, right? We are as different as you could be. And the great thing about that is just highly complementary skill sets and perspectives. And, you layer around that, I think, just a deep personal respect for each. I mean, I love Ron. Like, I've had business partners before. It's not my first rodeo. Ron is one of a kind. I would walk through a wall for him, and I think he'd do the same thing for me. And I think it's that respect for how different we are, and we stay in each other's lanes. There's some hilarious stories about people trying to pull us out of our lanes and infiltrate, and we've both just been, I think, true to what we were trying to accomplish, and honest and ethical, and no assholes allowed. And we've just built a great team and a wonderful suite of products that solve real problems for our brand partners and their consumers.
Well, I think I would just add a little bit to that, which I totally agree with everything that you said. But part of the team that we've built is an amazing science department. And if Kim and I were completely opposites, the science department and I are, these people, these guys have to take some harebrained idea that I have, which is not necessarily harebrained. It's just not sort of proven out, and I do things in the way that a chef does things. I don't care about the steps, and these guys have been very good at taking ideas and putting them into very functional steps and development, and all of the things that are required for scaling up and for explaining how and what the purpose of the invention is. So it's been an amazing experience for me, because I've been able to maintain myself as an artist, and that really is the only thing that I am. And all these other, we have a very small team, and each and every person has a real superpower, and it's amazing to see that in formation.
It's amazing to watch it even from a relative distance that I am, and Kim and I, we've talked a bunch, and this is actually what I want to ask, because the company is now, certainly in cannabis terms, sort of established. But you also have a unique spot in the industry where you're also working with brand partners, right, and others.
Mhm.
And I want to ask sort of about those relationships, because it seems like, well, I'm asking, like, has the maturity level of the companies you're working for, like, are they starting from a point where they want to scale or thinking about scale more earlier on, as opposed to like starting and struggle, like not knowing where they're going? Like, are people starting more intentionally their businesses and saying, here's how we're going to build a business, here's what we're going to do, and we want to build it for scale across one entire market or across the country? Like, are you finding that the professionalism of the people you're working with has improved over the time that you've been in the business, since you've been professionalizing as well?
I think it has, and I think people who are coming into the industry now have watched some of the success stories and the failures and have learned from that. So for example, it's very common now for a brand in a single state to want to replicate the Wana story, right? You take an asset light business model and you license state to state. So we do see a lot of that. um, that being said, we work with brands across the entire spectrum, from the largest MSOs to social equity, single, startup founders in the industry, and we've built a system to be able to service brands at any scale and at any stage in their own maturity. So that's really fun, because we get to be involved in some really cool projects with especially these early stage startups. So that's kind of like gets me excited. I love the startup phase.
Right. Yeah, I also want to ask sort of the initial insight around sort of onset time, like sort of thinking about that and replicability. And I want
Mhm.
to ask, I was just asking about the companies you're working with, but I also wonder if it's been reflected back from consumers as well. And that is around their desire to have this replicability from state to state. Like, I'm a cannabis consumer in New York. I go to
Mhm.
California. I want to, even if I can't buy the same products, I want the same experience, right? And um, and I wonder if that's reflected in the data too. Like, they want the replica experiences, is why we see some brands really permeate around the country.
Mhm.
One, it's the brand idea, of course, but also it's replicable, because if I go to California and I go to Colorado and I go to New York, I'm buying literally, it's not made in the same factory, but I am buying the same product. And I wonder if that's reflected in the data that you see, Kim and Ron, about sort of how consumers feel about this. And then I guess the corollary from a business perspective is, are they willing to pay for that, right? Or are they going back for that experience in the same brands?
Yeah, I think the data bears that out. So we did a study about a year ago on premiumization, and we asked the question: does the data support higher prices for premium products, with fast acting being the anchor in the premiumization category that we were looking at? And what the data tells us is that consumers would pay it was a 31% higher original price and a 39% higher sell-through price for the fast-acting SKUs compared to the non-fast-acting SKUs. And I think, to your point, like, consumers want a product that they can trust. They want an experience that they can trust. So when they see a brand that is available, in multiple states, and that has, precision formulation and predictable onset, they will um, it drives repeat purchases. So the data also bore out that the dispensaries that had the fast acting SKUs, that the fast acting SKUs were actually a trip driver, that consumers would go to a specific dispensary looking for a specific SKU that was fast onset, that they had brand loyalty to. So there's some really great data on the power of premiumization in this industry, where fighting the race to the bottom is really critical for the long-term
Yeah.
health of the industry.
Ron, it strikes me, Ron, that is like it's not the bookend, because nothing's over, but like, it is a nice sort of full circle moment to when you were in Nevada, hearing what the biggest challenges are to the industry, and have it be answered in data that consumers are actually buying the product that you helped create. Like, it does seem like the question that was asked, 10 years ago is being answered today. And all the answers pointed that you were right 10 years ago. Like that, I'm sure that's reassuring, but also it shows that the people 10 years ago knew what they were talking about.
Well, yes. I just want to interject one thing, which is that I love smoking weed so much, which I'll do right now.
Can continue. Yes, we get that a lot on these webinars. I think it's one thing when I think a lot of people are enjoying when we're talking, but also presenting as well. And I want to actually ask the next question, because this is sort of a look forward as well, because we've gone the history, we've got sort of the build up, and now we've got where we are today. And I
But
guess the
hold
question is, what?
on. I
Go ahead.
just
Go ahead.
I just wanted to finish my
Sure.
pre-bong point, which is that as much as I love smoking, I also felt that it was very important to try to create something that gave a similar experience as opposed to eating an edible and waiting an hour, 45 minutes, or 2 hours and never knowing what was going to happen. So, you know, there's a real satisfaction to that. And also, when I heard that in this hedge fund office, it wasn't just that it resonated. It was like, yeah, that is obviously the point. And so, yes, it really is an amazing experience to see that idea, because the chances of it existing, it only works if Kim and I were able to sort of figure out our commonalities, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay, because I'm a cannabis consumer too, especially edibles, and that's sort of my game as an older man, helping sleep and all that jazz. And the replicability has been a big part of that, right? And dosage and sort of getting the same experience over and over again. And I wonder, like, what I'm seeing at sort of the dispensary level is on all fronts, through all product categories, is like, it's not just THC anymore. It's like, what else is part of it that either bolsters the experience or bolsters the taste or bolsters all those things. And I want to ask you, Kim, to go back to you, like, what are you seeing? Is it about terpenes? Is it about other cannabinoids? Like, what are the consumers demanding, and what are you pushing as well that you think consumers will like?
Yeah, so I think that the trend we're seeing is that consumers are moving from a, you know, focus on intoxication to a focus on effects. So effects-based formulations that are more complex from a formulator perspective, but the ones that I think are being most successful are the ones that are selling an experience, right? Sleep, relaxation, relief. Um, so those formulations are gaining in popularity with the minor cannabinoids, the prime cannabinoids, and then, as you mentioned, like the terpene blends coming in. So we are seeing that premiumization of the product and formulation increasing. The other thing that is really interesting that is happening very much real time is um, there is now an evolution in terpene only formulations without cannabinoids. And we're going to be demoing some really interesting products at Ignite It in Chicago and Hemp Beverage Expo in Austin next week that are terpene only and have a really interesting validated effect. They've been through a blinded placebo study of almost 500 people. And so this opportunity for formulators and brands to have a non-cannabinoid brand extension, right, also gives brands a hedge against the regulatory risk, right? So it's consumers enjoy these products. The terpene providers are advancing in their sophistication and their terpene blends for effect and the data behind that at a time when the regulatory environment has a lot of uncertainty. So a terpene only formulation in a gummy or in a beverage has a lot of business appeal. So all of those things are coming together right now, which I think is just super fun. I mean, these are great products.
Yeah. I want to sort of close with you, Ron, as we come up on time on this. Like, I want you to go back to the sort of that hedge fund office in Nevada, and then picture yourself there and now today. Like, is this how you saw it playing out? I mean, that's part of it, but also, are you encouraged by both consumers and companies that are answering the question, or answering the problem, or answering the challenge that you heard about way back in that hedge fund office?
I mean, to be honest about it, out of all the subjects that were in there, most of them felt like they were fast business plays, in and out, flipping, grow,
Mm-hmm.
scaling and flipping. And, you know, just for the sake of it, when I own a restaurant, Bubby's, and which is where I've been a chef since I was 27. And so when I started Bubby, somebody said, "What's your exit scenario?" I was like, "I don't have an exit scenario. I have no idea." Yeah. And the guy's like, "If you don't have an exit scenario, you don't have a business." So I've never had a business mind in this way, whereas all the other hedge fund thinking people were thinking in this way at least. And so I feel that my own intention was to, to create um, cannabis edibles that little old ladies could consume and understand that they could have 1 milligram and that the benefits of that were uh, infinitely better than popping a 200 milligram gummy and finding out, what movie theater you woke up in. So my intention was to really in a medicinal way. And back then in that hedge fund office, there was no clear understanding of what we know now about medicinal applications, or infinitely more. And in my understanding, even back then, that older women were very much the the most the population most benefited by a controlled dose of cannabis that could be applied to many things that that a lot of these maladies are treated with opioids, and they always have been. And I would call that a dismissive attitude towards women in general, which, I'm not exactly the most politically correct person, but I have a great regard for, uh, I don't know, for fairness and thinking about things in a real way. And so the little, besides just the dinging the bell of getting little old ladies high, which I love, is my favorite thing. Um, I could see that there was that aside from all the other uses, that was the biggest real benefit. And I think that in a way, um, from that hedge fund office, that most business people will call me naive, or any number of sort of things to intimate that my business plan is not the fastest, bestest one, and I agree with that.
Right.
So I would just say that I tried to think of the most useful one, and that's really is the ethos of our company in many ways, don't you think, Kim?
Yes, it's, our one of our core values is helpfulness, and that plays out in being helpful to our brand partners, being helpful to each other, and being helpful to end consumers to really experience the plant in its best state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Ron, you say it's not the business acumen, or sort of the quick part of it for sure, but Bubby's and Azuca have sort of proven you right on both fronts. And I like that the demographic you're talking about is the Bubbies as well. Certainly the Bubbies in my life, or the ones that are my kids' Bubbies, agree with you as well. This can be a helpful and an important plant in their lives as well. But Ron and Kim, I really want to thank you for your time today. It's been an enlightening conversation, both about the company for sure, but also about the place you have in the industry and the important work that you're doing. So thanks for your time.
Thank
Great to see you,
you.
Jay.
Ron and Kim, thank you so much. This was incredibly valuable. And what I'm hearing is this: Azuca isn't just selling a product. You're actually professionalizing how cannabis edibles are made. You're giving brands the tools to scale consistently and broadly. And really, that is no small thing. It's really, let's call it industry infrastructure. And for anyone who's watching, who's building an edibles brand, producing at scale, or wants to, Azuca's approach is certainly worth understanding. So Ron and Kim, thank you for your time and great and fun conversation. For everyone else, I'd encourage you to head to azuca.co to learn more about what they do and how they do it, and how you can get in touch with them. And if you're in the B2B cannabis space, whether you're a producer or a brand, retailer, or consumer or investor, you know where to find us at cultivated.news. We send out a newsletter every single day at 8:01 Eastern Time AM. Thanks for watching us here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you down the road.